often borrowing from religious tales and folklore and exalting the nation in uniquely heroic expressions. As we explain in the next chapter, the American national narrative, rooted in the myth of the frontier and burnished with a certain self-glorifying idealism, tells a story of persistent expansion on the continent and beyond. The Iranian national narrative conveys, among many diverse elements, deep suspicion of foreign involvement in Iran, spurred by centuries of domination by non-Persians. The two nations came into conflict not only because their respective narratives are conflictual, but also because specific events brought them into confrontation, which the narratives enabled and reinforced, as did conventional national interests. This dynamic, moreover, gave rise to another narrative, that of the fraught relationship itself. The slings and arrows of that specific bilateral narrative, the U.S.-led coup against Mossadegh, the Iranian takeover of the American embassy in Tehran, with much more in between and afterward, fit the larger national narratives that span centuries before the two countries ever encountered each other. Precisely how these narratives shaped the U.S.-Iran confrontation, the fitful search for some sort of accommodation, and the missed opportunities to create a functional state-to-state relationship constitute the subject of this book. A Brief History. The relationship between the IRI and the United States was fraught from the beginning. The revolutionaries in Tehran saw Washington as the power looming behind the throne of the deposed Shah, Mohammad Reza Pahlavi, whose long reign was enabled by U.S. and British power and intrigue. Most notable was the coup the two powers engineered to remove a popular prime minister, Mohammad Mossadegh, in 1953, restoring the young Shah to a stronger political position and supporting him for more than 2 decades. The Shah fell in 1979 due not only to repression, but also to lavishness and corruption enabled by American petrodollars. American elites failed to see the situation for what it was and dug themselves into a deeper hole by allowing the ailing Shah into New York for medical treatment. This, for the Khomeini-led masses, was the final straw. They overran the embassy and held its staff hostage for 444 days. The animus became even more deadly during the 1980-88 Iran-Iraq War. The Carter and then Reagan administrations supported Saddam Hussein with intelligence, political legitimacy, non-lethal military equipment, and financial credits, probably saving his regime when the tide of war turned against him. Only after Khomeini died in 1988 did the possibility arise for some rapprochement, signaled by President George H.W. Bush, but the chance slipped away in the tumult of Desert Storm in 1991 and the collapse of the Soviet Union several months later. Beginning with the election of Mohammad Khatami in 1997, an enormously consequential event for the politics of Iran, the two adversaries commenced as never before an improvised series of moves to build a better bilateral relationship. These moves were intended not to normalize the relationship, which seemed far-fetched at the time, but to transform it into one with regular direct communication, some discussion of mutual concerns, and more efficient troubleshooting. These modest but achievable goals seemed feasible with Bill Clinton having begun his second term as president just 7 months before Khatami was inaugurated. Clinton had hardly been embracing Tehran with open arms before Khatami's arrival. He issued several executive orders banning investment in Iran's energy sector, for example, and signed the Iran and Libya Sanctions Act in 1996, all of which cheered Iran's opponents. Just as significant as sanctions was Clinton's palpable anger when, in June 1996, 19 U.S. Air Force personnel were killed in a truck bomb explosion at Khobar Towers near an airbase in Saudi Arabia. Iran was fingered as the culprit, and Clinton actively considered a retaliatory attack on Iran. In light of Clinton